The morning sky over Seoul turned purple without warning. Captain Nam was drinking coffee on the observation deck of Aegis 7 when the alarm system screamed to life. Through the massive windows, he watched as enormous ships tore holes in space itself, emerging like whales breaching the ocean's surface. "Get me a count," said, setting down his cup with steady hands. His crew rushed to their stations. 47 ships, Captain," his sensor officer reported. "No, wait, 73, they keep coming." The alien vessels were nothing like human ships. They looked organic, like massive creatures made of metal and light. They positioned themselves above every major city on Earth: Tokyo, New York, London, Moscow, Beijing. All of them now had alien ships hovering in their skis. Communications panel lit up. Every frequency was broadcasting the same message in every human language. "People of Earth," the voice was cold and mechanical. "We are the Dominion. You have 72 hours to surrender your world. We have conquered 847 civilizations before you. Resistance brings only death. Submit and you will serve. Fight and you will burn." The message repeated, over and over. The same words in Korean, English, Spanish, Arabic, and hundreds of other languages. Images flashed across screens worldwide, showing alien cities in ruins. Species had never seen being marched in chains, planets burning from orbit. Down on Earth, ministers sat in an emergency meeting of the UN Security Council. The room was chaos. Representatives from every nation shouted over each other. Some demanded immediate surrender. Others called for war. Nobody could agree. "We cannot fight this," the French ambassador said. "They have destroyed civilizations more advanced than ours." "We don't know that," replied, her voice cutting through the noise. "We know nothing about them except what they told us. They could be lying." 847 worlds, someone shouted. "How do we fight that?" Looked at the images still playing on the screens. Something bothered her. The conquered species in the videos looked afraid, yes, but not like warriors. They looked like people who had never known war. Their cities were beautiful but had no walls, no defenses. These were peaceful civilizations that had been crushed. Earth was different. Earth had walls everywhere. At the International Defense Research Institute, Doctor was not watching the news. She was studying the alien ships through every telescope and sensor humanity had. The data confused her. "This doesn't make sense," she muttered to her assistant. "These ships are powerful, but they're not scanning us properly. Look at this. They did a basic survey of our military installations, but they missed half of them. It's like they only looked for 6 months and then attacked." "Maybe they don't need more time," her assistant suggested. "Or maybe they're in a hurry," pulled up the energy signatures from the alien fleet. "These readings show wear, heavy wear. These ships have been fighting for a long time without proper maintenance. They're tired, and look at this power distribution. It's inefficient. They're powerful, but they're not invincible." She started running calculations. If the alien shields worked the way her data suggested, there might be a weakness. It was a small chance, but it was something. On the other side of the world, Commander Park stood in the Pacific Fleet Command Center, watching the alien ship hovering over Hawaii. Unlike the politicians, was not debating surrender. He was planning an attack. "Get me every piece of data we have on those ships," he ordered. "Power sources, shield frequencies, weapon systems, everything." "Sir, the UN hasn't authorized military action," his second-in-command said. "I don't care. When they do, I want to be ready," zoomed in on the alien vessel. "These things came to pick a fight. Let's make sure they get one." Back on Aegis 7 continued his observations. Something was strange about the alien formation. They were positioned to intimidate, not to fight efficiently. The ships above the cities were spread thin, covering maximum territory with minimum force. It was a show of strength, but it revealed a tactical weakness. "Communications, connect me with Defense Minister," said. When face appeared on his screen, didn't waste time. Minister, I think they're bluffing. Explain. Their formation is wrong. They're trying to scare us, not fight us, and look at their broadcast. They gave us 72 hours. Why? If they're so powerful, why not just attack? Why give us time to prepare? Consider this. You think they want us to surrender without a fight? Yes, which means they don't want to fight. Maybe they can't afford to. The message changed perspective. She stood up in the Security Council meeting. We need more time to gather intelligence. Tell the aliens we are considering their offer, but we need to consult with all our nations. Request an extension. That's just delaying the inevitable, someone argued. Maybe, said, or maybe it gives us time to learn their weaknesses. As the first day passed, the world held its breath. Some people rioted in the streets, others prayed. Governments quietly moved weapons into position while publicly discussing peace. Doctor shared her findings with military scientists around the world. Commander drilled his forces relentlessly. Captain watched the alien ships and noted every pattern, every movement. Lieutenant sat in her fighter cockpit on a carrier in the Pacific, reading the intelligence reports. She was young, barely 26, but she had flown more combat hours than pilots twice her age. Her hands ran over her controls lovingly. The fighter had been her home since she defected from the North with her father 10 years ago. If they think we'll just roll over, they're in for a surprise, she said to herself. Across the globe, a hacker named Shin worked with his network to break into every system they could find. If the aliens were broadcasting on human frequencies, maybe they could listen to alien frequencies too. His fingers flew over keyboards in a basement in Seoul, trying every code and encryption break he knew. On the third try, he got something: alien chatter. It was encrypted but smiled. Encryption could be broken, it just took time. As the 72-hour deadline approached, humanity was not idle. While politicians talked and people feared, soldiers prepared, scientists calculated, and hackers probed. The Dominion had conquered 847 worlds, but they had never conquered Earth. They were about to learn why. The countdown continued, 60 hours remaining, then 50, then 48. The alien ships hung in the sky like dark promises, waiting for humanity's answer. What they didn't know was that humanity was already answering, not with words but with preparations. Earth was getting ready for war, and they had made their first mistake. They had given humans time to think. The deadline came and went with silence from Earth. The commander, a massive creature named On, watched his tactical display with growing irritation. Usually, primitive worlds surrendered within the first day, certainly within 72 hours. But humanity kept asking for more time, kept talking, kept stalling. They think they can negotiate, On said to his officers. Show them what happens to worlds that waste our time. Begin pacification strikes. The alien ships fired. Beams of purple energy lanced down from orbit, targeting military bases across the planet. A naval base in Virginia exploded. An Air Force facility in Germany vanished in flames. A command center in India turned to glass. On expected panic. He expected governments to scream for mercy. Instead, he got something else entirely. Every human military installation that survived the first strike immediately returned fire. Missiles streaked up from hidden silos. Orbital defense platforms that they had somehow missed suddenly powered up and opened fire. Fighter jets swarmed from underground bunkers. Ships at sea launched everything they had. Impossible, On's tactical officer said. They should be broken. They should be begging for terms. But humans were not begging. They were fighting. And they were not fighting like the other 847 species the Dominion had conquered. Those species had been peaceful, unified under single governments, evolved on safe worlds where predators were rare. They had sophisticated cultures and advanced technology, but they had no experience with total war. Humans were different. Humans had evolved on a planet trying to kill them. They had spent 10,000 years fighting each other in increasingly creative and terrible ways. They had built weapons not to explore the stars, but to destroy their neighbors. They had gone from throwing rocks to splitting atoms in a cosmic, driven by an endless arms race with themselves. Admiral 1 stood in the command center of the emergency coalition fleet, coordinating the defense. Ships from every nation on Earth now flew under one banner for the first time in history. American carriers worked alongside Chinese destroyers. Russian submarines coordinated with Korean cruisers. Even old enemies put aside their differences in the face of extinction. All units focus fire on their shield generators, ordered. Doctor's analysis indicates they have to cycle their shields every 17 seconds. Hit them in that gap. The first human counterattack caught them completely off guard. They expected scattered resistance. Instead, they faced coordinated strikes from forces that had drilled together for decades, preparing for wars against each other. All that preparation now focused on a single target. Lieutenant led her fighter squadron through a gap in the alien blockade over the Pacific. Her targeting computer screamed warnings at her. Alien interceptors were closing. Her shields were taking hits. None of it mattered. She had a mission. "Phoenix Squadron on me," she called. "We're going straight through." Her pilots followed without hesitation. They had trained for suicide missions against other human forces. Facing aliens was almost easier because there was no guilt, no wondering if the other pilot was someone like you. These were monsters who burned worlds. Killing them was simple. Fighter took 3 direct hits. Her shields collapsed. Her left engine was failing. She kept flying. Her missiles locked onto an alien cruiser's shield generator, right where Doctor said it would be weakest. "Fox 3, she said calmly and fired. The missiles hit just as the shield cycled. The explosion tore through the alien ship's hull. For the first time, a cruiser took critical damage. For the first time, they were bleeding. "All squadrons confirm," transmitted. "The shields have a weak point. Doctor was right. Hit them when they cycle and you can hurt them." In his basement, Shin finally cracked the alien encryption. Their communications flooded his speakers. What he heard made him smile despite the danger. The aliens were panicking. "These creatures fight like demons," one voice said in a language computer translated in real time. "They have no fear. They sacrifice their own ships willingly. We've never encountered this." "Maintain formation," another voice commanded. "They cannot sustain these losses. No species can." "But they are sustaining them. They lose 10 ships and 20 more appear. Where are they all coming from?" Recorded everything and sent it to military intelligence. The aliens were scared. They had never fought someone who fought back with this level of intensity. General Lee coordinated ground forces from a bunker deep beneath Seoul. When alien troops landed in major cities expecting to find cowering civilians, they instead found prepared defenses and organized resistance. Humans had spent centuries fighting urban warfare. Every city was a fortress if you knew how to use it. "Sector 7, fall back to the prepared positions," ordered. "Let them advance into the kill zone, then hit them from all sides." The ground forces were powerful, but they were used to fighting species that tried to defend fixed positions. Humans used the entire city as a weapon. Buildings collapsed on alien columns. Subways became ambush routes. Every human with a weapon was a potential threat. Children threw rocks and bottles. Old people reported enemy positions. Nobody surrendered. On Aegis 7, Captain led a daring operation. When a damaged alien cruiser drifted too close to his station, he didn't destroy it. He boarded it. "This is insane," his first officer said. "Maybe," replied, checking his weapon. "But we need their navigation data. We need to know where they come from, how many more ships they have, what else is out there." The boarding party breached the alien hull with cutting torches. Inside, they found a dying ship and a terrified crew. The soldiers were huge, nearly 3 meters tall with 4 arms and natural armor. But they had never fought in close quarters against species bred in urban warfare. His team moved through the ship like shadows, using tactics learned from centuries of human soldiers fighting in trenches, tunnels, and corridors. The aliens were stronger, but humans were faster, meaner, and fought with a desperation born from being the defenders. They captured the ship's computer core and 3 live prisoners. When they returned to Aegis 7, immediately turned the data over to intelligence. What they found changed everything. Doctor analyzed the navigation logs and went pale. "They're running," she said to Admiral. "They aren't conquerors, they're refugees. They're fleeing from something worse." Explain. According to this data, they destroyed their own home region through ecological collapse. They've been running across the galaxy for 300 years, conquering primitive worlds to sustain themselves. Those 847 civilizations, most of them were pre-industrial. They picked soft targets because they couldn't afford hard fights. "Until they found us," said. "Until they found us," confirmed. "And now they're trapped. They can't beat us, but they can't run either. They're running out of resources, out of ships, out of time. This isn't an invasion, it's a desperate gamble." "Then we have them," said. The battle raged for 3 days. They threw everything at Earth, and Earth threw it back twice as hard. Human losses were terrible. Entire cities burned. Millions died. But the humans kept fighting with a ferocity that terrified the aliens. On the 3rd day, the fleet began to retreat. Not all at once, but ship by ship, pulling back from their positions. They had never retreated before. In 847 conquests, they had always won. But Earth was the 848th world, and Earth did not surrender. On watched his fleet withdraw and felt something he had not felt in decades: fear. These humans were not like other species. They were predators wearing the skin of civilization. They were warriors pretending to be peaceful. And now, watching human ships pursue his forces with relentless determination, On realized the terrible truth. They had not found prey, they had found hunters. The retreat was not an escape, it was a trap closing. Admiral stood before the holographic display showing the solar system. The alien ships were pulling back toward the outer planets, regrouping near Jupiter's orbit. They thought they were getting away. They were wrong. Now said quietly. The moon lit up. Massive doors opened across its far side, the side always hidden from Earth. Inside were weapons humanity had been building in secret for 30 years, ever since the first radio signals from deep space suggested we were not alone. Rail guns the size of skyscrapers, missile batteries that could saturate an area of space with nuclear fire, energy weapons powered by reactors buried deep in lunar rock. Captain commanded the lunar defense grid. She had spent 5 years on the moon, training for this moment, living in tunnels and bunkers far from Earth. When the order came, her finger hovered over the firing button for only a second. "Fire everything," she said. The moon roared. Projectiles launched at a significant fraction of light speed. Each rail gun round carried the kinetic energy of a nuclear bomb. They crossed the distance to the alien fleet in minutes, far faster than they expected. The first rounds punched through alien shields like paper. They had never encountered weapons that relied purely on mass and velocity. Their shields were designed to stop energy weapons and missiles, not telephone pole-sized tungsten rods moving at orbital speeds. 3 alien ships exploded in the first salvo, 5 more in the second. The fleet scattered in panic, but there was nowhere to run. Human ships had been quietly surrounding them while they retreated, using Earth's orbital debris as cover. Doctor watched from her lab as her quantum disruptor deployed. It was a device built on the shield flaw Lieutenant had discovered. Instead of trying to break through the alien shields with brute force, it simply confused them, making them cycle rapidly until they overheated and failed. "Activating disruption field," her assistant said. Across the battlefield, shields flickered and died. Ships that had seemed invincible were suddenly naked to human weapons. Missiles found their targets. Lasers burned through hulls. The hunters were now the hunted. On his flagship, on screamed orders that no one could follow, his fleet was disintegrating. These humans had been holding back. The desperate defense of Earth had been a test, a way to gather data. Now they were showing their real strength. "Retreat to the quantum tunnels," he ordered. "Full withdrawal. We'll regroup at the staging area and return with reinforcements." But Captain had been studying the captured navigation data carefully. He knew where the tunnels would form. He knew their escape route, and he was waiting there with everything Earth could throw at them. "Target lock on the quantum tunnel formation point," reported to Admiral. "We have them." "Hold fire," said. "I want prisoners. I want their commanders alive. We need to know everything about them." The trap was perfect. When they tried to open their escape tunnels, they found human ships already positioned at the exit points. Commander led boarding teams onto 5 separate alien vessels simultaneously. His special forces troops moved through the alien ships with brutal efficiency. They had trained for this. Every military on Earth had special forces, soldiers trained to fight in the worst possible conditions against the worst possible enemies. For decades, those enemies had been other humans. Now they finally had a common foe. His team breached the flagship's command center. On stood there, massive and terrifying, his 4 arms holding weapons. But he was alone. His crew had abandoned him. They had seen what happened when humans boarded ships. "Surrender," said in the alien's language, his translator working perfectly thanks to the data they had captured. On laughed. "We are the Dominion. We have conquered 847 worlds. We do not surrender to prey." "You're not the Dominion," replied. "You're refugees, running scared, and you just made the mistake of attacking the one species in this region that could destroy you." He raised his weapon. "Surrender or die, choose now." The fight went out of On's eyes. He had seen too many of his ships destroyed, too many of his soldiers killed. The humans fought with a cold efficiency that terrified him. They showed no mercy in battle but offered surrender. They were honorable and brutal at the same time. It made no sense to his understanding of the universe. He dropped his weapons. The battle was over. Of the fleet that had attacked Earth, only 12 ships survived. All were captured. Over 5,000 alien prisoners were taken. The mighty Dominion that had conquered nearly 1,000 worlds had been broken in less than a week. In Geneva, the UN Security Council met in an emergency session. Minister stood before the assembly with a proposal that would change everything. "We have won the battle," she said, "but the war is not over. According to the intelligence we captured, the Dominion controls 847 worlds. Most of those populations are enslaved. We have an opportunity here." "What kind of opportunity?" the Secretary General asked. "A chance to free them all." Pulled up star charts on the main display. "The Dominion is overextended. They rule through fear, but that fear is broken now. If we strike hard and fast, we can liberate their entire empire before they can organize a defense." "You're suggesting we invade them?" someone asked in shock. "I'm suggesting we free the slaves they've been abusing for centuries," replied. "And in the process, we make sure they can never threaten Earth again." Dr. O listened to the debate from his laboratory. He was the lead scientist on Project Prometheus, humanity's antimatter weapons program. For 20 years, it had been theoretical research, too dangerous to deploy against other humans. But now they had an enemy that deserved it. "If they vote yes," his assistant said, "we'll need to accelerate production." "Then we accelerate," replied. "These aliens thought they could burn our world. Let's show them what real fire looks like." The vote was not unanimous, but it was decisive. Earth would not just defend itself. It would pursue. It would hunt. It would make sure that the Dominion never threatened anyone again. Admiral received his orders and smiled grimly. He had spent 30 years preparing for humanity's first contact with aliens. He had always assumed it would be peaceful, a moment of wonder and diplomacy. Instead, it was war. But if war was what the universe wanted, Earth would give it war unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. "Prepare the fleet," he ordered. "We're going through their quantum tunnels. We're taking the fight to them." Lieutenant checked her fighter one more time. It was patched and repaired, barely space-worthy, but she refused to fly anything else. This bird had gotten her through the battle. It would get her through the war. Continued monitoring alien communications. He had cracked their encryption completely now. He listened to their chatter from across the Empire. They were terrified. News of the defeat at Earth was spreading. Conquered species were whispering about rebellion. The Dominion was starting to crack. "They're scared," reported to General. "They never thought anyone could beat them. Now they don't know what to do." "Good," replied. "Keep them scared. Fear is a weapon and they taught us how to use it." As human ships gathered for the counterattack, the crew of each vessel understood what they were about to do. They were going to war in a way humanity had never fought before. Not against each other, but against a true enemy. Not for resources or ideology, but for survival and justice. The Dominion had come to Earth expecting an easy conquest. What they got instead was a nightmare. They had awakened a species that had been preparing for this moment since the first human looked up at the stars and wondered what else was out there. Now Earth had its answer, and Earth was ready to make sure the galaxy learned a new rule. Never pick a fight with humans. They don't just fight back. They hunt you down, they finish what you start, and they never ever forget. The Earth Expeditionary Force gathered at the edge of the solar system. 50 warships, newly built or retrofitted with captured alien technology. It was the largest military fleet humanity had ever assembled, and it was about to do something no human had done before: leave the solar system for war. Fleet Admiral Song stood on the bridge of the flagship Indomitable, watching as the quantum tunnel formed ahead. The captured navigators had cooperated once they realized humanity was serious about dismantling the Dominion. Now those same navigators were guiding human ships through space in ways that should have been impossible. "All ships report ready," her communications officer announced. "Then let's make history," said. "Take us through." The tunnel swallowed the fleet and reality twisted. For 15 seconds that felt like 15 hours, the ships traveled through a dimension where physics worked differently. Then they emerged into normal space, 300 light-years from Earth, at the edge of Dominion territory. "Sensors, give me a reading," ordered. "Detecting multiple orbital stations, Admiral, and, my God, I'm reading life signs on the planet below. Millions of them." This was Prime, one of the first worlds they had conquered. The planet's original inhabitants, a species called the, had been an early spacefaring civilization before the Dominion arrived. Now they lived as slaves, mining resources for their conquerors. Commander studied the tactical situation. 3 cruisers orbited the planet, along with dozens of smaller patrol ships. Normally, this would be a significant force. Against what Earth had brought, they were nothing. "Admiral, I recommend we broadcast a message to the planet before we engage," suggested. "Let them know we're here to help." Nodded. "Communications, open a channel, all frequencies." When the channel opened, spoke carefully, her words translated by computers. "People of Prime, this is Fleet Admiral Song of Earth. The Dominion attacked our world. We defeated them. Now we are here to free you from their rule. Take shelter. This will be over soon." The ship scrambled to respond, but they were too slow. Earth's missiles were already in flight. Within 10 minutes, all 3 cruisers were burning wrecks in orbit. The patrol ships tried to run. None escaped. Landing parties descended to the planet's surface, led by Commander Special Forces. They expected resistance. Instead, they found something else entirely: confusion. The people emerged from their homes cautiously. They were humanoid but taller, with blue-tinted skin and large eyes adapted to their dim sun. They stared at the human soldiers in disbelief. "You came to free us," an elder asked through a translator. "Why? What do you want from us?" "Nothing," replied. "They attacked our world. We're making sure they can't attack anyone else. That means freeing everyone they've enslaved. But no one has ever done this before. The Dominion is too strong." "The Dominion was too strong," corrected. "Not anymore." News of Prime's liberation spread through the Dominion's communication networks like wildfire, and his hackers made sure of it, broadcasting the message to every conquered world they could reach. The impossible had happened. Someone had defeated thee and lived. Someone was setting the slaves free. On the second liberated world, a planet called, the population didn't wait for human troops. They rose up the moment human ships appeared in orbit. 2 centuries of oppression erupted into violence as the people turned on their overseers. By the time human soldiers landed, the revolution was already over. Diplomat Park found herself in an unexpected position. She had come to negotiate with liberated peoples, to help establish new governments and maintain order. Instead, she was coordinating a rebellion that was spreading across a dozen star systems. "We have uprisings on 7 more worlds," she reported to Admiral. "The enslaved populations are fighting back. They're inspired by what we did at Earth." "Can we support them?" asked. "Some of them, yes. Others are too far away. But Admiral, we need to be careful. We're not just fighting the anymore. We're starting a galactic revolution." Understood the concern, but she also understood the opportunity. Let them rise. Give them whatever support we can. The Dominion kept these people down for centuries. It's time they had their freedom back. Doctor and Doctor worked together on the Indomitable, analyzing captured technology. What they found was both impressive and deeply flawed. The aliens had advanced technology, but they had stagnated. They hadn't innovated in centuries because they didn't need to. Conquest had always worked before. "They're militarily powerful but scientifically dead," explained too. "They stopped researching, stopped developing. They rely on technology they inherited from their ancestors." "Which means they can't adapt," added. "They've never fought an enemy that could match them technologically because they've never needed to improve. We're already surpassing them in some areas." "Keep working on it," ordered. "If we can get ahead of them technologically, this war ends much faster." Lieutenant flew patrol missions around liberated worlds, and she saw something that moved her. On one planet, children of an alien species came out to watch the human ships fly overhead. They waved. They cheered. They saw humans as saviors, as heroes. Had spent her whole life training to fight other humans. She had defected from the North expecting to fight against her own people someday. Instead, she was fighting to free people she'd never met, species she'd never known existed until a month ago. It felt right in a way she couldn't explain. Captain continued to lead the intelligence operations, interrogating captured commanders and piecing together the Dominion's true situation. What he learned was troubling. "Admiral, we need to talk," he said, pulling aside. "I've been analyzing the interrogation data. They are desperate, but not just because we're beating them. They're running from something. We knew that. Ecological collapse in their home region. It's worse than that. According to these commanders, they didn't just have ecological collapse. They caused something called a cascade failure. They strip-mined hundreds of worlds in their original sector, destroyed entire ecosystems. The region is now uninhabitable for thousands of light years. They can't go back, ever. So they have nowhere to run except forward," realized. "Exactly, which means they're more dangerous than we thought. Cornered animals fight hardest." Process this information carefully. The Dominion wasn't just evil. They were desperate refugees who had turned to conquest out of necessity. It didn't excuse what they'd done, but it explained it. and it meant they would fight to the bitter end unless offered another option. Over 3 months, the human fleet liberated 15 worlds. Each liberation inspired 3 more uprisings. The Dominion's empire was collapsing from within. Commanders found themselves ruling populations that no longer feared them, fighting rebellions they couldn't suppress, while human ships destroyed their reinforcements before they could arrive. General coordinated with local resistance movements, teaching them tactics humans had developed through of guerrilla warfare. Soon, every Dominion-controlled world had organized insurgents using human strategies. They who had never faced sustained resistance before had no idea how to respond. But the cost was high. Human ships took losses. Soldiers died in combat. The Indomitable took critical damage in a battle near the system and had to withdraw for repairs. Lieutenant's squadron lost 3 pilots to a Dominion ambush. Commander's forces suffered casualties in brutal ground fighting on a world where they made their stand. Each loss hurt, but the humans pressed on. They had started something they couldn't stop. The momentum was unstoppable now. World after world fell to human forces or to local uprisings. The 847-world empire was fracturing. Minister, watching from Earth, sent a message to Admiral. The Security Council wants to know your timeline. How long until we reach the Dominion? Looked at her star charts. The path was clear now. Most Dominion forces had collapsed. Only the core systems remained, and at their heart was the home system itself, the last refuge of a desperate people. 2 months, she replied. 2 months and we'll be at their doorstep. Then this war ends one way or another. But as the fleet prepared for the final push, Admiral found herself thinking about what had told her. There were refugees, desperate, cornered. What would desperate people do when faced with total destruction? She feared she was about to find out. The home system was a fortress. 6 planets, each with orbital defense platforms. Hundreds of ships, all that remained of the once mighty Dominion fleet. And at the center, on a dying world of gray skis and polluted oceans, lived the last of the original population. Fleet Admiral Song studied the defenses from the edge of the system. Her fleet had grown with volunteers from liberated worlds. Pilots flew alongside humans. Soldiers stood ready to board enemy ships. Engineers worked on human warships. The fleet that had left Earth with 50 ships now numbered over 200, a coalition of the freed. They know we're coming, Commander reported. All defense platforms are active. Their fleet is positioned for a final stand. How many civilians on the planet below? Asked. Approximately 40 million. All, no slave populations in their home system. Ambassador stood beside on the bridge. He had been sent from Earth specifically for this moment, to negotiate the end of the war. He was old, a career diplomat who had spent his life preventing wars between humans. Now he had to end a war with aliens. Admiral, before we attack, I need to speak with them, said. They might just kill you, warned. That's a risk I'm willing to take. These people are cornered, desperate. If we just attack, they'll fight to extinction. We need to give them a choice. Considered this. Every instinct told her to strike first, strike hard. They had burned human cities, killed millions of people. They deserved no mercy. But she also remembered what Captain had discovered. These were refugees who had destroyed their own home out of greed and desperation. Killing them all wouldn't bring back the dead. It would just create more graves. Send the message, decided. But if they fire on you, we're coming in with everything we have. His diplomatic shuttle approached the Alone, broadcasting continuously. This is Ambassador of Earth. I come to speak with your leaders. I come to offer terms. Please respond. For long minutes there was only silence. Then a response came. Approach the planet. You will be escorted to the surface. Any hostile action and you will be destroyed. Captain watched from the lunar observation post, which was now monitoring the battle from light years away via quantum communication links. He's either very brave or very foolish. she muttered. Both, Doctor replied. She was there too, watching the diplomacy unfold. But maybe that's what this situation needs. Onda was brought before the matriarch Ara, the supreme leader of what remained of the Dominion. She was ancient, over 400 years old, her once powerful body now frail. Around her stood the High Council, the commanders and leaders who had overseen 8 centuries of conquest. You come to demand our surrender, Ara said. Her voice was tired. I come to offer you a choice, replied calmly. Surrender, yes, but not unconditional. We want 3 things. First, immediate liberation of any remaining enslaved populations. Second, reparations to the worlds you've damaged, technology, resources, knowledge. Third, integration into a new galactic coalition where all species are equal. And if we refuse, then Admiral has orders to reduce your fleet to ash, destroy your orbital platforms, and blockade this planet until you have no choice but to accept terms. Your people will die slowly, starving and isolated. Or you can choose to live as equals instead of conquerors. Ara laughed bitterly. Equals. We were the greatest empire in this region of space. You were tyrants, said quietly. You built your empire on suffering. You destroyed your own home through greed. And when you had nothing left, you took from others instead of learning to live differently. That ends now. The question is whether it ends in fire or in peace. Before Ara could respond, Captain's voice crackled over the communication channel. Ambassador, we have a problem. Doctor just made a discovery you need to hear. Doctor appeared on the screen, her face pale. Ambassador, I've been analyzing biological data from captured. They're dying, all of them. They have a genetic plague, a mutation caused by the pollution and radiation from their ecological collapse. Their DNA is breaking down. Within 2 generations, they will be extinct. Ara closed her eyes. So you know our greatest shame. Yes, we are dying. That is why we needed the conquered worlds. We hoped one of them would have a solution, a cure, but none did. We conquered 847 civilizations and none could save us. But Earth can, Dr. O's voice joined the transmission. He was working with Doctor. We've analyzed the plague, it's complex but it's solvable. Human genetic medicine is advanced. We've cured similar problems in our own population. We can fix this. We can save your species. Silence fell over the council chamber. Ara stared at the human diplomat. You would save us, after we attacked your world, after we killed your people. On one condition, said. You accept peace, real peace. You dissolve the Dominion, free every slave, and join the coalition as equals. You teach us your technology and we save your species. We give you a future and you give the galaxy a chance at lasting peace. One of the council members, a military commander, named or stood up angrily. This is unacceptable. We do not surrender to prey species. Then you doom our people to extinction, Ara said quietly. Sit down or the war is over, we lost. We can still fight, we can make them pay. And then what? Ara demanded. We kill more of them, they kill all of us and they cease to exist. Our children die. Our entire species vanishes from the universe. For what? Pride. Lieutenant listened to the transmission from her fighter, where she was on standby for a possible attack. Next to her, a pilot named Ha spoke softly. I hope they choose peace. I've seen enough war. So have I, agreed. But if they choose war, we'll finish it. Without question, Ha confirmed. In the council chamber, the debate raged. Some commanders wanted to fight to the death. Others, exhausted from centuries of running and fighting, wanted peace at any cost. The people were divided. Finally, Ara raised her hand for silence. I am the matriarch, the decision is mine, and I choose survival, I choose peace. She turned to, what are your exact terms? Pulled up a document on his tablet. The Earth Coalition Charter, every liberated world has signed it. It guarantees sovereignty, mutual defense, free trade, and shared technology. No species rules another. All contribute according to their ability. All receive according to their need. It sounds like a dream, one council member said. It's a start, replied. Humans spent 10,000 years fighting each other before we learned to cooperate. We're not perfect, but we're trying to build something better. You can be part of that, or you can die alone. Ara read the charter slowly. It was everything the Dominion was not. It was built on cooperation, not conquest, on equality, not subjugation. It was the opposite of everything her people had become. It was also their only hope. I will sign, she said, but I cannot guarantee my entire species will accept this. There will be resistance. There always is, said. We'll deal with it together. The signing ceremony happened on the Indomitable, with representatives from every liberated world present. Ara dissolved the Dominion officially, transferring all authority to a provisional government that would work with the coalition. Commanders who refused to accept peace were arrested by their own people, who were tired of fighting. Doctor and Doctor began working with scientists immediately, developing the cure for the genetic plague. It would take time, but it was possible. They would survive. Admiral watched the ceremony and felt a weight lift from her shoulders. The war was over, not through annihilation, but through choice. They had been given a last chance and they had taken it. Minister sent a message from Earth. Well done, Admiral, come home. But shook her head. Not yet. We have 847 worlds to help rebuild. That's going to take time. 10 years later, the galaxy was transformed. The coalition had grown to include hundreds of species, all working together. Trade flourished. Technology advanced. The cured of their plague had become valuable members of the coalition, their quantum tunnel technology making interstellar travel accessible to everyone. Captain, now an admiral himself, commanded a joint fleet of humans and aliens, protecting coalition space from pirates and exploring new regions. Lieutenant trained pilots from a dozen species, teaching them human tactics while learning their techniques in return. Ambassador worked tirelessly to bring new worlds into the coalition peacefully. Doctor and Doctor had opened a joint research institute where humans and aliens worked together, advancing science at a rate that amazed everyone. Commander ran a coalition military academy, training soldiers from across the galaxy in tactics that blended human experience with alien innovation. And on Earth, a monument stood in Seoul. It listed the names of every human who died in the war, along with the names of aliens who had died fighting for their freedom. At the top, an inscription read, "We judge civilizations not by their first action, but by what they choose when given a last chance." The galaxy had learned a hard lesson. Humanity was not the strongest species, not the most advanced. But they had something unique, the ability to forgive without forgetting, to offer mercy without weakness, and to build peace through strength. They had struck Earth first. What they got was a last chance, and in the end they took it. The universe would never be the same.